Okay, we are going to begin by opening the public hearing, and I will read the public hearing notice. To the inhabitants of the town of Farmington, you are hereby notified that pursuant to New Hampshire RSA 198:20B3A, the Farmington School Board will hold a public hearing for the purpose of accepting unanticipated revenues in excess of $5,000.
Okay.
And this is the Robotics.
Yes,
Great.
this is the state robotics grant for the high school. We have received $12,500 for that, and it is to be allocated and spent on the items specifically identified no later than May 30th, 2020. So it has a limited time on that, but that is unanticipated revenues for this year, and we will be getting on spending that probably starting tomorrow, as long as they're accepted tonight. So.
All right, does anybody want to speak to the robotics grant while the public hearing is going to stay open for an hour, so I will close it at 7:30-ish. Yep, you just come up to the microphone if you want to speak, please.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I know.
Hi. So I'm one of the robotics mentors, and Chuck, trainer over there, is the other mentor. So we've been waiting for this fund to come through. The kids are very excited. We're already building our prototype upstairs, which is why I'm still kind of messy from, and tomorrow they're coming in after finals to work more. So there's really no downside to this. It's giving kids more fun stuff to do, more opportunities, teaching them stuff that we can't teach them in class or that we don't have the funds to teach. So it's a win-win in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. So,
How many students involved?
we have on and off 15 to 20, depending. Usually right now it's a solid 15.
And where is the competition?
We have two. One's in Bedford and the other is in Salem, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't do UNH this year because they're doing something to the arena during when we usually would compete.
And that 15 or 20 students, is that just at the high school or is that district-wide?
Just at the high school.
Okay.
The Henry Wilson has a good-sized group also. But our robot is 120 pounds. It's a full-size robot. It's not the cute little craft robots. So some of our kids weigh less than the robot.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Did anybody have any other questions for it before she sits down? Does anybody else want to speak to the public hearing? If not, I'll open for public participation.
Tim Brown from Melody Lane in Farmington. During the budget hearings, there was a comment that was made about a double journal entry with the special ed money during last year's budget. Can you explain how, if any, first of all, when that was caught, and secondly, how, if any, that's going to affect the budget we're in now?
It wasn't a journal entry that was double booked. It was when and it was caught this year when I did the MS 24. So it wasn't a journal entry. It didn't impact our operating budget. What it did was it overstated our estimated revenues when we set the budget last year.
Okay, so on gross budgeting, we have revenues, we have expenditures.
And
So
we
as our revenue goes down, our tax impact goes up. What was the amount, and did that move from our revenue side to our tax side?
It didn't move anywhere. It was, we overestimated revenues by $269,000.
So we have $269,000 being moved from revenue to taxation.
In last year, not in what we're talking about now.
It was corrected for the 2019 December tax bill. So that has already been corrected. It's already done.
Okay.
It was corrected in
tax-
the MS 24 for the fall.
Which is the budget we're in now,
Right.
correct?
Correct.
So that, it was last,
So we have a $269,000 what revenue shortage?
$269,000 even, but we didn't actually have a shortage. It's just that was an overestimation there are two ways that are estimated. One is preliminarily with when we do the MS-27, which is the budgeting process. When it comes back around to the summer, we have to do something called the DOE 25, and we have to tell our actual revenues. When our actuals revenues were reported, we reported what we actually got, and that is the amount that went forward into the tax rate setting process, so.
So wouldn't a better explanation be when we go to the deliberative section, we have a warrant article that says we want to raise and appropriate X amount of dollars. The default budget is this, and here's the estimated amount by taxation. So the estimated amount by taxation, because of the double revenue entry, would have been increased $269,000, but thank you.
Yeah, I don't think that's what she just explained.
She did, but that's what happened.
That's what you
Okay.
think happened. I'm gonna,
The estimated amount was just that, it was an estimate. It doesn't become final until we complete the tax rate setting process, which impacts the next tax year.
So it doesn't become final until we find our mistakes. I'll move on to the next question. I think it was the last meeting we talked about the school bus recordings and the requirement of the notification to parents and the failure to notify parents being a Class B felony. Has that been fixed, or are we going to continue for another 20 years committing Class B felonies against our kids?
Lance Tanner, Farmington resident, taxpayer, et cetera. I just have a public comment statement I'd like to read. And I don't think it'll take too long. First of all, I would like to thank Superintendent Vaughn, Business Administrator Mallon, for your professional presentation and explanation of the 2021 school budget. I also would like to thank Mrs. McElhenney for her work on the Budget Committee. It's not always an easy process. Anyone watching school board and budget committee meetings must admit the school department budget receives a lot of scrutiny and discussion. I encourage residents, especially parents and taxpayers, to attend or watch school board meetings on a regular basis. If you have questions, contact Superintendent Vaughn or one of our 5 elected school board members for answers based on first-hand information as opposed to hearsay or rumor. Watching, listening, and being aware of school needs might help voters understand why budgetary items are requested and needed to support student success. From my experience, Superintendent Vaughn and the school board have generously answered my questions and allowed me time to express a viewpoint, which is what I'm doing right now. If the town wants 3 schools, we have to fund the operation and maintenance of the buildings. While I did not teach in Farmington, I did spend 30 years in the classroom, as most of you know. Student performance was always a hot button topic. So for 30 years, hot button topic. Some students might not have been in the top 10 of their graduating class, but became very successful professional students. I could give you names and professions of former students of mine, to name a few. Just look at your next bill for a plumber, electrician, auto mechanic, carpenter, and your restaurant meal, and just tell me, that's a good thing. Some of these professionals, and they are professional people, may not have been in the top 10, some were. I don't believe test scores and numbers are always an indication of success. The importance of education must start in the home. Parental support and involvement is critical to determine the level of success a child reaches. When students, for whatever reason, are not being supported at home, the importance of school staff becomes even more essential to student success. Dedicated teachers and other key support staff, counselors, social workers, etc., are absolutely necessary in today's world. Maybe I'm a little biased here because I was a teacher. The demands placed on schools to support young people is much greater than in the past. As a community, we need to support all children. If we don't, how will they have a chance at success, both in and out of school? Students tend to feel connected to their schools if they are welcomed by a familiar, consistent teaching staff. Supporting teachers will hopefully help the district maintain a quality, experienced staff. A revolving door does not benefit student growth and success. I'm on the last page. When taxes increase, whether due to school or town budgets, will I have to make personal budget changes? Yes, I will. Will I continue to have questions? Yes, I will. I do not have any personal connection to the schools, never have in the 16 years I've lived here. However, as a resident, my obligation of support to the community includes both the school and the town. I will continue to do so as long as I can. Everyone is busy, but parents and tax-paying residents should attend the school deliberative session on Saturday. This is a great time to gather information and have questions answered by both school board and budget committee members. Be an informed voter. Make your own decisions when it's time to vote on March 10. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public participation?
Sorry, could I pass something?
Are you doing public now? Or are you not on the agenda?
I don't think I'm on the agenda.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. I think, have those?
No.
No?
This is.
All right.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Sarah Shanahan. I'm the Education and Training Director for Haven. Haven is one of 13 crisis centers dealing with anyone impacted by domestic and sexual violence, human trafficking, or stalking in the state of New Hampshire. We're a member of the New Hampshire Coalition Against Domestic and Sexual Violence, and we are a nonprofit organization. So I'm here today because Haven actually has a long history of presenting in the Farmington schools. I started back when Haven was SAS. We are the merged agency of SAS and A Safe Place, two organizations that have been working to prevent and address issues of violence in Rockingham and Stratford County for over 40 years. Our education programs have been in the schools for over 30 years, and we've been here in Farmington for as long as I can remember, and I started at SAS in 2001, so I'm in, is it year 19 that we're headed into? I know that at the school board meeting on October 21st of this year, there was a vote to suspend our presentations in the schools until more information could be gathered about our organization and the presentations we do. So I just wanted to take an opportunity to talk a little bit about what we do today and answer any questions that the board or the public might have about our programs. So interrupt me at any time if you have questions. I also want to thank you so much for talking about supporting students. And really the goal of all of our programs is to provide that support, and particularly to provide information and support to the most vulnerable members of our community, which are children who are experiencing abuse, either inside or outside of the home. So that's really what we focus on. We know that this is directly related to academic success. The research around adverse childhood experiences, around children who experience or witness domestic violence, physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, or neglect, are that there can be long-term negative health consequences, including increased risk for substance use, suicidality, re-victimization, poor academic outcomes. And so we know it's really important to intervene early, and that's the point of our programs. We have in the past been in Valley View, not very recently, but our programs really start from a foundation of personal body safety. The message of all of our programming is that we want kids to have the skills that they need to reach out for help from trusted adults in the community. We know that kids can't prevent and stop abuse on their own. It's the responsibility of adults in the community to prevent abuse and to protect children. And so that's really our message, is that we're working with kids to help them understand when things are happening that make them hurt or scared or confused or uncomfortable, that there are adults who care and who can be there to support them. And also giving them information to help recognize unhealthy behaviors like violence in their interpersonal relationships, or bullying, or sexual harassment, or sexual abuse. So that is the goal of all of our programming. As I said, we have been in the schools for a very long time, and I know there was a request for information, so I can stop for a minute if people had questions.
I'm just gonna, I'll just say, one of the problems or questions that we heard was the scenarios, and and how it's perceived by children that somebody bumps them in the hall and that's sexual harassment. Or, so I know that's not the message. I've actually been in one of the group lessons. So,
Right.
So can you just share with us a typical scenario, say, in the middle school?
So in our middle school programs, and you do all have a sheet outlining kind of the programs, the scenarios you're referring to are in our sexual harassment and bullying presentation. The majority of that presentation, and we do adjust it as we move forward, is really students talking about what they're already experiencing in schools. So students identifying behaviors that they see in school, identifying the places that those behaviors happen, which are almost without exception places where there is less adult supervision. So really working with them around those messages. And I know that there was some concern that we were telling students that they were criminals. What we try to express in our presentation is that the school has a responsibility to keep students safe. The reason that we talk about sexual harassment is that it's against the law for schools to allow sexual harassment to happen in the school without it being addressed. And we do use some scenarios, and we've actually shifted because we were typically running out of time with all the questions that kids have because it's so relevant to their experience, right? They're trying to navigate these interpersonal relationships all the time. But some of the scenarios that we use were scenarios of just two friends playing and identifying, is that okay? We use scenarios that show behavior that might be flirting and try to differentiate that flirting is absolutely fine and it's very different from sexual harassment, and talk a lot about the feelings that somebody has when they're being bullied or sexually harassed. And that's really kind of the barometer for whether something rises to that level. It's how it's making you feel. Yeah.
And just to further clarify, I think one of the issues that one of the parents did have was the fact that the information and permission slips that were going home to the families outlined content in one manner, and yet when the children sat down for the presentation, it was sometimes a little bit more intense, a little bit more adult. And I think that was the one of the main issues that this one of these parents had.
And do you know if that was a concern about the 6th grade presentation or the 8th grade presentation?
I don't, however, should it matter?
This is not public participation.
No,
This should be on the agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This is not public, this is not
no,
the intent.
it's at the request of the chair.
Yeah, well, I'm opposed to this because we're discussing something about the middle school. Middle school principal is not even here to give us the input from the school's point of view. And what's that?
Neither is your chair.
The
No,
vice
I'm just-
vice chair is, though.
But just my input.
Yeah, and
That if this is going to be the intent
Yeah,
of this,
I
which we
just-
have literature on, but it's not
I
on the
was-
agenda.
I was surprised it wasn't on the agenda as well. But I was told that it was requested.
Well, and I would just put out there, we're local to the area. If you would like for this to be an agenda item in the future, we're happy to come back if that feels more appropriate.
Okay.
I'd just like to have all parties part of this discussion.
Yeah, maybe bring them, come back when the middle school is doing a presentation as well.
Okay, and that
But
would work.
does anybody have any questions before we wrap this part?
If we, I don't know whether you were going to meet on the 3rd or the 4th. Mr. Castangwe was not going to be available on the 3rd, but could possibly be on the 4th. So if you were looking at deciding which date, that might help that piece too.
Okay. I thank you for your time, and I know that you were here at someone's request.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we do have additional materials, if it's okay, I'll stay for the part of the meeting that's open. If there's any community members who would like more information, I'm happy to share.
I am going to close public unless there's other public before we move on. We will have public participation again at the close, just before the close of the public hearing, and then again at the end of the meeting. All right, moving on to minutes. I have minutes of January 6th, public session. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Any changes or discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes, January 6th, non-public session 1. I had one correction, but I'll take a motion.
Make a motion.
Motion by Mrs. McElhenney, second by Mr. Lewis. There's a motion to go into non-public session 1. That should be in the public minutes on non-public session 1.
Do you have that?
And I believe that, yes, I do, and I think that was in,
It's in non-public session 1, so I
right,
think
so it
just doesn't
shouldn't be
need to
here. Right, okay, so we'll strike that. Okay.
Anything else? Hearing nothing further, all those in favor? Aye. Minutes of January 6th, non-public session 2. Do I hear a motion? So moved by Mr. Frida. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Mrs. McElhenney. Any errors or omissions? All set?
Other than an apostrophe after boy, the S on boys, that's it?
All right, all those in favor? I have non-public session 3 of January 6th. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Frida. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Ms. McElhenney. Any changes? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? I have non-public session 4 of January 6th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. McElhenney, second by Mr. Frida. Any changes?
Yes, on the motion, it should be to add the reason negotiations for the sealed minutes. We need to
Yes.
name the negotiations there.
Anything else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. I have January 16th, the emergency public session meeting minutes. Do I have a motion? Motion by Mr. Frida,
Second.
second by Ms. McElhenney. Any corrections?
I would suggest that in I guess it's the second full paragraph, that it would be Mrs. Mellon rather than Jana.
Yes.
Penny, I had a couple.
Go ahead.
Excuse me, on page 3, I guess it would be paragraphs, sentence or paragraph 7 and 8. The paragraph that started, Mr. Brown suggested using the DRA formula. Where it gets to the second sentence, the sentence currently reads appropriation divided by net valuation times 1,000. It should say net appropriation divided by net valuation. It's a nitpicky thing, but it's a different number. And then in the sentence below, the town has a different valuation figure than the school this year. Again, that should be net valuation.
And maybe just for simplicity, we put the two different figures in for evaluation. Just the two different-
Yep, we can.
We can insert those.
I think.
Well, I
that
think
would-
in the first paragraph, it was talking about the formula, so there's not really a number, but in
Right.
the second one, we could certainly put in the
Yeah,
figure.
The two net valuations,
Yes,
the
yeah.
differences.
To show the differentiation. Two. Did you have anything else, Jana?
No, I didn't, thank you.
Anybody else? Right. All those in favor as amended? Now I have December 9th. Is that what everybody else?
Actually, it's November 12th, approved by the board December 9th, revised
It's on the
the 6th.
6th, right.
And so these are the changes that you had verbally approved back on the 6th, but now you see them in print to formally approve.
Okay. Did everybody have a chance to review those? All those in favor as amended?
Well, do we have a motion?
Well, make a motion to approve
Okay.
As
as
amended.
amended.
Thank you. Second by Mr. Frida. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
We're up to student services.
so
So
here.
if you want to just give some highlights, we've all heard them, so that we're not going through
Sure,
every line.
I will certainly give highlights.
Thanks.
So I put in there as well, and this is a quick highlight, this is just a early math literacy piece in terms of looking at noticing patterns. We will be looking to put that on our website as well, just in terms of looking at dice and having children describe how patterns repeat and how our patterns formed to kind of get them thinking in terms of math, even at a very young age. Medicaid to school emergency rule, rulemaking is in place. We're at the point where we're having public hearings. And even as I've just prepared this, things have changed. So the changes in terms of Medicaid in services that are reimbursable to schools through the Medicaid to federal funds, counseling is no longer permitted. We cannot seek reimbursement for counseling services, group services, individual services, or rehabilitative assistance as a result of a counseling goal and counseling services. So that is a large change for us and many other districts. That will certainly impact us in terms of the amount of revenue that we'll be getting back. The new rules also put into place the requirement that we get doctor's orders for OT, PT, speech, and the rehabilitative assistance that might go along with that. For instance, a paraeducator who's working on carrying over OT goals related to fine motor skills in terms of helping a child in the classroom. However, I just read the emergency guidance over the weekend, and they are telling us now, and if I'm understanding it correctly, and based on conversations I've had with other people, they're understanding it the way I am, we don't have to have now doctor's orders for speech and PT. However, OT, we continue to need that. At this point, since I've developed all the paperwork already, thank you, Darlene, and all of my special education staff who have been working very diligently to get this done by sending out notices to parents, and then I apologize, parents hounding them to get it in to us. We will be sending these out to doctors, asking for them to sign off on them, and then return the originals to us. So that begins tomorrow. I will be running those things out. Student assistance program continues on. They've had 160 individual sessions at Farmington High School over the course of this year already, which is wonderful. There have been a bunch of group sessions, 18 at Henry Wilson, 40 at the high school. We had a Make and Take It event, which was really wonderful. It was such great energy. People coming to make chocolate chip cookies in the mason jars or bean soup in the mason jars and taking them to give as gifts. And it was just really a great spirit and fun to see everybody there. So you'll see some of that in the annual report. Community Partners has done an excellent job. So to those parents who might be listening who have been holding up doing their intake appointment with Community Partners, they have changed their model of doing that. They're open access now. You can come in any day and go in and walk in and complete your intake. In terms of kind of the levels of intervention, we have guidance counselors, our first level. Second level would be our SAP counselors, social worker, and counselor that we have here. And the community partners is our third level. So there's our highest level of intervention. So we're thrilled that they've made that change. We thank them for that. So they're working really hard, and we hope parents will make that final connection. Court and truancy, we're still having a number of meetings regarding students who are meeting the truancy mark. Staff have been really diligent about making phone calls, sending out letters. I've made a number of visits to home. Those are all part of the process of truancy. I've indicated here that it's a reminder that long-term illnesses, 3 or more consecutive days, we must have a doctor's note in order to excuse those days. We've had a few people that, after reading the policy, found that to be something they didn't realize. So we're making people aware of that, and that, should we continue to have those issues, then we take the next step. But hopefully that will be resolved. And then you see my breakdown of caseloads with the variance in terms of the changes. And right now, total for the district, we have 177 students, including out-of-district charter school and in our school district.
Anybody have any questions?
How many out of district got caught placed?
3. Everybody else is good?
So I will highlight a few things. It's pretty dense this month, partly because I really wanted to get some information out to the community around learning, motivation. I think our budget season is really kind of some of the highlighted pieces around professional development are a part of some major conversations, and I really want to impress on the community that our teachers really need to have these supports. We need to have them built into the school day because the only way that they can really do what they need to do is to have those supports in place. And so a lot of what I put in my report is really back up for why that's so important, because if you look at the top 16 things that really improve student achievement, they're all within our control as educators. But we have to have time to think and learn together and plan together. So I really want our community to understand the importance of that. And we get a huge bang for our buck and high impact for our students when our teachers are really supported and feeling confident. So that piece for me is something that I want us to really think about. And as you look at our upcoming PD Day, our leadership team has really tried to work hard together to create a day in which might somewhat replicate what those 2 hours might look like in each week. And giving teachers a lot of choice and voice in their own learning. I've heard a lot of positive things from teachers about how we've built this out. They're feeling good about it, and hopefully the day goes well, crossing our fingers. But I think we have a lot of good options, all related around around high quality instruction. And I did place our data in here with really extensive kind of narrative around it because, and I was glad that Blanche brought up standardized testing because we often tend to look at that, and we should be looking at it, by the way. It's an important piece of data that we have to look at to see that we're getting a cost benefit for our education. And so, looking at this, though, I want us to remember the demographic we're working with and how important all the things that we have in place to support that demographic is, and that we have some structural pieces that really need to be overhauled to serve that demographic better and more effectively to give them access to that high-quality instruction, because no matter where a kid comes from, they can learn if they have the supports they need. But it starts with often a lot of things that we can't quantify in a standardized test, and teachers themselves can't control that boulder, but they can control a lot that leads to it. And that's where our PD has to lie, is in the things that we can change in our time with kids. So, when we look at those standardized test scores, I will tell you that as your director of curriculum, I'm looking at this going, we really need to start talking about this and making some good decisions about how we're going to start to shift some things. But I will tell you, it's not a teacher problem. It's a structural problem. And our teachers need to have the structures in place, because what we have for a clientele now is very different than 10 or 15 years ago. I was in college learning to teach it 25 years ago, and the clientele we're dealing with now is not the clientele I started with, right? So, we have to learn every year new strategies to work with those kids. So we never stop learning as educators. But when we don't have structures inside of their time frames to help them continue to keep learning, that we end up with some issues. And I really want to support our teachers in that. So that's one thing I really want to push. I also mentioned here, which probably is a touchy subject, but I'm going to mention it anyway because I do that. That top 10% thing that keeps coming up and I'm hearing, that is measured on things that often are not, it's hard for our kids in our demographic to meet the criterion for those U.S. News and World Report top 10s. And if you look at the top 10 in New Hampshire, it's all our affluent school districts. And our districts that are down in the over 30, 40, 50% free and reduced lunch, they're always swimming down at the bottom. Manchester's at almost 60% free and reduced lunch, they're always last. But that doesn't mean that they're not doing amazing things for their kids. Our teachers are doing really good things for our kids. It's not necessarily going to show up on that standardized test score right away because they're living in a structure that is actually a barrier for this demographic. So we have to start looking at how we're going to redesign some things to meet the needs of our demographic. So we can't compare ourselves to a Bedford, not the same demographic, right? We're swimming in a pool right here in this region of a lot of kids who really need a lot of social supports. They can achieve, but we have to look at how we do school for them differently. And we can't do that if we don't have a lot of opportunities for us to learn together. So I'm going to keep hitting that point about this teacher's contract because that PD is critical for us. And I hope that that's not a deciding factor because it is something that really we need to have. And it was, I think the teachers union and you as a board negotiated a contract that really is good and can benefit kids a great deal. So if we shoot it down, that's hurting kids. Right? So that's sort of, for me, kind of a big thing that I want to get out there to the community that, we need to be thinking about that. And there's a lot of research in this report that people can look at and can see what the data says that we should do. And actually does work. From my personal experience, it does work. And we just have to help our teachers build up their capacity and our community to work together to build that capacity. So that's really sort of the thing I want to highlight today, because I think people can look at this data, but...
and it's on our website.
It is on the website, and I'm happy, to talk with anybody. People can come see me, community members come see me in my office. We can look at this stuff together to really make sense of it, because if you don't live in this data all the time, you don't necessarily understand what it means. So I'm really happy to do that, and I want to put that out there.
Anybody have any questions?
No question, but a comment. The
Yeah.
newsletter is awesome.
Okay.
Great job. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is that next to me?
Yeah, we're ready. Is she?
I thought I saw her.
She's the puppet behind the curtain,
She okay?
I think.
Oh, she's the wizard behind the curtain, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the puppet.
So, hello everyone, my name is Jennifer Loudon. I am the IT director, and I'm going to bring this up in just a second. I just didn't want to interrupt what our curriculum director was doing. And I'm going to talk a little bit just very quickly about the technology department updates we've had going on, because we've had quite a few excellent updates going on. And one thing I'm going to start with is the sound system before I bring up the slides here. Bring up the display real quick. So before I bring this up, the sound system at both Henry Wilson and Farmington High School have both been updated. This is something long in coming for Henry Wilson, and we're very excited about it. And the high school, we started out by just updating the speakers and the wiring, because the sound system at the high school really was in good shape. We really didn't need to overhaul the entire sound system. Really, it was just some wiring that needed to be repaired and some speakers that needed to be not only replaced, but better placed. So these have been flown up where they're nice and safe behind the rafters and not down right on where they're not only a target at times, but also they've been causing feedback when we would have public events, such as when we would have a deliberative session or anything of that respect, where we would have the microphones out front facing the speakers. So I flew the speakers up into the ceiling above the rafters, and they face down, so the sound bounces off the gym floor and continues on all the way through the rest. And I know I received calls from, in fact, Mr. Shagnon one Sunday, which I went, oh no, what is going on? And he let me know that he was very pleased with the sound improvements I made there. Again, that one was minimal change. It was just wiring.
It's like night and day, though. It's really, and, you know, when you consider the amount of important assemblies and things that we do there, deliberative session, I'm looking forward to having us use that during deliberative session, because it really is night and day.
We, in fact, we're going to be doing some testing Friday evening, but we're very excited about it. And it was just looking at what we have that's good and looking at what we could do to improve it. And so we just looked at the wiring need to be changed out, the speakers, the placement, and then some settings within the mixer. At Henry Wilson, however, that system was very, very outdated. And I don't know if you remember way back when equalizers weren't digital, but when they actually could slide to make the equalizer, that's where we were at. We had one piece of hardware about this big that was just for cassette tapes. Not 8-track, luckily, but still cassette tapes. And so there was a lot of hardware in there, a lot of very outdated. We had blown speakers. We had very old wiring. We had wiring that was shredded in some places. So that system, we did do a bigger overhaul. We changed out the mixer. The DVD player was fine. However, we didn't need to change the CD and the DVD player. And when we changed out that sound system, we put in, again, we flew up speakers again, put them up nice and high above the rafters. We also mounted them in a way that they would be able to go around to focus around the gym without having interference from microphones and different things that we would have in there. So we're very excited, and I would like to throw out a shout out and thank Mr. Jett, who has family in this district, and he came to a graduation at the middle school, which was one of the things that he was very, very excited to be able to work with us with AV Access. He's very excited to come to another graduation now, too. So the sound system sounded tremendous. However, I did take into account what was mentioned to me about securing the investment. And I wanted to have a way to secure this new system, but still have access to all the programs that use, because the gymnasium at Henry Wilson is a community access. So I wanted to have something for the community that come in there. So I took as many of the components that were salvageable or that we could bring together and I created a second older system. I call it the public use system that anyone can use. I have directions, everything's labeled exactly. So that way more resources, more clubs, communities could use the different, but we could also secure the investment we put on the new sound system. So I actually have two different sound systems, one that's locked down, secured by Quest, and the other one that is a public access for when we have other programs that are here in the after hours and one of us isn't here to support it. But I'm very excited. The sound is so much better, and so I'm very, very pleased about that change. The other one, and so many of you are experiencing it tonight, is we did a wireless refresh both at Valley View and here at the high school. Valley View's wireless infrastructure was very outdated, and a lot of the components were end of life. And the speed also was very, very low, and the capacity was low. In fact, the way it was set up was back in 2012-ish, right around that time, back when you had access points going down the hallways, and you weren't thinking of things like one-to-one classroom environments and having multiple devices in every classroom. So now instead of Valley View, there's an access point in every classroom. There's an access point for every office area. There's a larger access points for higher capacity in areas such as the multi-purpose room. I had an example last year where I had people come and say, Jen, what's wrong with the wireless? I said, what do you mean? I'm working away. And they said, well, we're having a training in the multi-purpose room. I said, how many people are in that room right now? They're like, everyone. And I went, okay. And so now you can have that large staff training, which we're going to be doing on Wednesday in that area, and again with the library. The high school, we did the same thing. In fact, here in the library, we have one of the larger mid-size access points, as well as a smaller one for the conference room area in the back. But in the gymnasium, there's a nice large one that you can see that is secured with a cage that is a very high capacity access point to fill the entire gymnasium. So that way you can go seamlessly around the building and fill in all those areas where signals used to drop. A lot more capacity, and that way we can look forward to meeting some of those goals I had seen when I first came here about one-to-one devices or BYOD or whatever it might be. We're set up a lot better to meet those goals. I also did a lot of changing out the cabling for Cat 6 cabling to increase speeds, because I'm trying to increase the speed and capacity for the access of resources for students and staff. So a lot of you're only as fast as your slowest piece of hardware. So I've been trying to increase where I can that speed and capacity through new cabling and so forth. Big one, and this has been my one that I've just been trying to get us over, and we're getting there now. Now, all the main offices of all the school locations are on the same phone system. I have the main office at Henry Wilson, the main office at Henry Wilson already was, the main office now at Valley View, the main office at the high school, and the main office, of course, at the SAU offices are all on the same networked phone system. Why that's important, it increases communication capacity between those offices, because now, if you have someone from the community call in, they can transfer a call between any of the offices. That includes nurse, guidance, athletics, IT. We all have now on the same system network phones, so we can transfer calls seamlessly between the buildings. We also have something I didn't realize, that Valley View did not have its own general inbox before. And the moment I found that out, I was like, oh, we've got to change this. You have to have a general inbox. So now all of the schools have not only a general inbox for parents to leave messages and communications, but also each of the offices, the principal, the nurse, the guidance, each also have their own voicemail inbox, and the capacity to email out voicemails that come in for specific staff members. Now, the plan, of course, is to continue on over the next couple of years to move into classroom and other spaces, but just getting those main important offices on the same unified phone system was a big thing that I was really very, very excited to share with you today. The other thing we've been working on is the PA systems, because I'm working hard to try to improve communication and safety features in each of the buildings. So I have been doing some work overhauling Henry Wilson's PA system. I had Mr. Pickford come out and did a big cheer and went, "It's been 10 years, but my PA speaker finally works." And he was so excited because he was in a room that had 2 speakers, but one of them was very, very old. The wiring was very old, and I was able to get that completely repaired, get the wiring repaired. Also change out the volume, because when I came in, the PA system at Henry Wilson was either very, very loud or very, very quiet. Now in the classrooms, we're able to take the volume level. There's a lot of wiring that had to be changed out, a couple of cards that needed to be replaced. And now we're also doing zoning, so that the superintendent can send out a message to the entire building, such as a lockdown, or the principal can do one just within Henry Wilson to the middle school, so we can zone the PA systems, and that is something that hasn't been possible in there for quite a while. So we're also working on the PA units, and the plan for the Bogan, the next part at the Henry Wilson, is to now finally be able to connect it to their networked phones. So right from a network phone, you'd be able to, the principal could pick it up from his phone anywhere, dial in the code, and he could do that major announcement, do that lockdown. A huge safety important feature that we've been working on. We're also looking at being able to do that at the elementary school. That's going to take a little bit longer, but we want to start right away with Henry Wilson while we're moving the phones into the different schools. So those are some of the huge communication sort of things that we've been working on with the sound system, with the phones, with the PA, and of course with the wireless for connectivity and resource access to resources. So those are just some of the updates we've been doing in IT this year. Are there any questions on some of those updates?
I just had one for Ms. Vaughn. I was watching budget committee meeting the other night, and there was some discussion about phone systems and some issues that the town was having with the phones.
Yes.
And they asked you a question. I couldn't see your head bobbing one way or the other, so I don't know what the answer was.
Well, the question that they had asked was I having the same problem with the same company that they were having? And I said, at this point, same issue, different company, and I'm not going to give you any more specifics on camera. And we just left it there.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
And I want to say a huge thank you to Mrs. Loudon. She has had hundreds of hours in very late evenings trying to work around, because most of this work can't be done when there are students that are possibly coming under ladders, and with people crawling through the ceilings, having them fall through a tile onto a student is a bad idea. So she's been here very late, weekends, making sure that things happen, and supporting teachers while we moved to finals week in the middle of her installation on her, and she has been as flexible as Gumby, and I really, really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you, Jen.
Is anyone else coming up behind me do this, or should I go back?
I'm probably going to at some point, so.
Okay, treasurer's report.
So you have 2 months here. We have 2 bank accounts. One is our food service account, which is the smaller balance of the 2, and one is for our general operating account. You have October and November. I wanted to send a special thank you and recognition out for Rachel Bork, who's serving as our treasurer, who has been working really hard to put some templates and different things in place to allow for this role to continue in line with best practices for the role. There was a time, if you recall, where we were a little bit behind waiting on some reports because she was trying to kind of build that infrastructure with me and with the assistance of another town treasurer. And she has done that. She is now current. We don't have December's yet because we still are in the process of that reconciliation, but she has caught up with what she's done, and it's been a lot of work on her part. So, I extend my thanks to her, and I would hope that the board would recognize that effort too.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bork, if you're watching. Okay, policies.
So policies, GKR, GBK, and GBKR were ones that you had asked me to go back to our collective bargaining units to make sure that that was in line with what they were okay with. I've heard back from the presidents of all 3 that they were fine with the content of all 3 of these. So that was the Paras Association, the custodians, and the teachers.
I will motion to make final reads GK-R, GBK, GBK-R, EEA, EA, and EEAEB. Oh, and one more, and GCCCC. Right. You just didn't want to have to repeat those.
Okay, motion by Mrs. Moran to accept those as final reads. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Second by Mr. Frida. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you. And you have in there policy JFAA, which is legal residency of a student. This is another one of those numbered policies that was rescinded. This is where our process of being able to get an affidavit of residency for our incoming students lives. And so what I have done is given you an update of what the School Boards Association lettering would be with the changes that would need to come in order to make them fairly seamless between the 2. So you have your changes in red or strike through. Primarily it's adding a few phrases and the RSA references and citations at the end. But understand this will probably be a first read, so.
Has it been put up on the website yet?
It goes up on the website once it's
After a
accepted as
first
a first read. Yep, so that would go up tomorrow and then could be addressed at your next meeting.
A motion to accept as a first read.
Motion by Mrs. Moran to accept the policy as a first read. Second. Second by Mr. Frida. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you. So
Policy?
that's it for policy.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, we have some bids.
Bid acceptance, yes. So we'll start with the security cameras and door access. I'm going to take one and pass that way. So we had 2 sections here for the security cameras. We had 2 companies that bid, Wire-to-Wire Technologies and Seacoast Security. For the door access, we had One Source Security and Automation and Seacoast Security. So we had one company bid for both. Each of the other companies only bid on one. What I've given you are the total cost, the hardware and software comparisons, optional maintenance and support for the security cameras, the scoring averages, and our recommendation. The total cost for the 8 cameras at Valley View and the high school, Wire-to-Wire Technologies, was $13,730.98. For Seacoast Security, it was $23,365.57. Everything else was pretty close, but given the fairly large discrepancy in the amounts, we are recommending Wire-to-Wire Technologies for the cameras. They're using the same cameras. The software wasn't as clearly defined in the second one, although it will work with what we have, but for that much more money, it didn't seem to be. And then for the door access for Valley View and the high school, One Source Security and Automation, total cost for 8 doors would be $20,840.88. Seacoast Security was $15,315.95. One Source did not include the key fobs. Seacoast Security included 150 fobs in the price. So we were recommending Seacoast Security.
Is there a monthly fee in addition?
It's optional. It's not a requirement. Should we choose to go with that, but it's not something that we had to do.
Could you give me the name again of the company?
Yes, it's Seacoast Security, and I will give you this if you want.
And the one that, the Seacoast Security, it wasn't one or both. If they didn't get both, they wouldn't get
No,
one.
they were separate bids.
They were separate bids?
Separate bids.
Was that your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do a motion?
I will make the motion to go to Wire-to-Wire Technologies for the 8 security cameras at a cost of $13,730.98.
Where are they out of?
Have a second? Second by Linda.
I can give you that. Wire-to-Wire Technologies is out of they are New Hampshire, and I want to say it's Mid-State.
It should be in the back of the page
It's-
on there where it is symbolized.
Yeah, I don't see what this is.
Google it.
Yeah, we could Google it, yeah.
What's that?
Google it.
Doesn't actually.
Didn't even put up a address.
Oh,
does it?
yes, it is. Manchester. Mid-State, Manchester.
Other questions, Mr.?
Do we want the optional support package? Motion that
I've only done the cameras, so
There is an optional
There's an
support
optional
package
one
for
on the
the,
camera, too.
Oh, I didn't.
At this point, I was not under the impression that that's something that we needed to go with.
You can always revisit that later
We
if you
could.
find that that's a need.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure we had the right price.
Yep.
No, that's fair.
So I have a motion and a second on the cameras.
Just the cameras, yeah.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Do a motion on the
Door access.
Door access to Valley View and VHS.
And Seacoast Security is out of West Rockport, Maine, so I'll tell you that now.
I'll move that we accept the bid from Seacoast Security for the door access for 8 doors for $15,315.95.
Motion by Mr. Frida. Second by Mrs. Moran. Discussion?
I'll ask again, do we want the optional ongoing monthly?
And again, that was something that
we do later.
didn't seem that we needed
Okay.
at this point. Is that,
No, I was just going to add that, I just had a question. It's 12 cameras I got, because the principal's sitting next to me. It's 12
oh,
cameras.
it's 12 cameras. Sorry. Okay.
So you amending your motion? 12.
That's the camera one.
That was
That's the camera.
Okay. That was my motion.
So it's not it's really, that wasn't part of the motion either.
Okay.
Further discussion?
I guess my question is for the 8 doors, is that the total that we're going to be looking at, or are we going to be doing more?
That's stage 1.
Stage 1.
Anything else? All those in favor?
Thank you.
Flooring?
Yes.
Oh,
Do you want to close the public hearing?
thanks. Anybody present want to speak to the subject under the public hearing? If not, I'm going to close it. Okay, we'll close the public hearing at this time. Thank you.
This is for flooring at Valley View and the high school. For the high school, it would be for this room, for the library. For Valley View, it would be for the main office area, to replace the carpet with tile. Get rid of this carpet. The overall cost for the high school from Alpha Painting Group and Construction Services is $21,000 for the high school, $18,000 for Valley View. Brock's gave us a quote of $11,238.48 plus moisture testing for the high school, and $9,465.45 plus the moisture testing for Valley View. Moisture testing was $100 for Alpha that was included. Brock's gave us a range of $150 to $750 for that, and that would be done after the carpet is pulled up to see what's underneath it and where we are, because they need to test before they can put down the next piece. Recommendation for both is to go with Brock's.
Got a motion.
So moved.
A second.
So in the motion though, should you, when we include the numbers, are you gonna go up to the height, the 750 mark, or up to?
Well, that's the
Well,
total.
plus, I just
Is
have a
that, that's
question, I
not in
guess.
there, is it?
The total cost is the.
Plus moisture testing, would that be the
So that would be including on top.
You have
Yeah,
to
I would
add
probably
750
add
to it.
750 to it. So that would be,
I'm doing it right now.
11,000.
okay, you're gonna beat me to it.
No, probably not.
63.
So 11,985.
48.
And 11,409. Oops.
That's the high end.
It's up
All right,
to-
so I will amend my motion to go with Brock's with an up to, what's that?
That's like
Okay.
12,000.
11,985.48.
Do you want to round it up to 12,000? Just because that's very specific that they go into the pennies.
So certainly that's board's prerogative if you want to do up to.
I think it's fine where it is.
Okay.
Can you give me the figure again?
985.48. And then you're doing that just for the high school, correct? Or are you doing
Are you making
a
a motion
motion
for both
together?
bids?
I was doing it for both bids.
Okay, so for Valley View, it's $10,215.45.
And I only did it for both bids since it was the same company.
Right.
Just out of curiosity, I was not a math teacher, but you got materials, it's 58 cents. That's the only pennies I see, yet the total comes to 48 at the top.
That might have been a typo.
No, just curious.
If it was, I will.
And the other question that I just had is, with this amount of $11,985.48, does it also include the removal and disposal fee?
Yes, it does.
the labor? Okay, so
Yes,
the
it
only
does.
thing that wasn't,
The only thing that wasn't included was the moisture testing.
Did you have any part of the moisture testing in there? Did you start at like 150 and add that in there? Because-
No, it was not
nothing?
included,
All right.
so. And there were a couple of other smaller pieces, but these were the ones that were apples to apples all the way across, which is why those are the two pieces that or the pieces that I gave you for both companies.
okay, I just want to make sure that was the total cost.
Yep.
So what was the total, Mr. Shagnon, for both buildings? Did you do that?
$22,200.93.
Is that including the testing?
That's the high end of the moisture testing for each bid. Is that in your motion?
Yeah. Can I,
Who seconded that?
Linda,
Oh, sorry. We're gonna give it to Ms. McElhenney.
can I suggest we add 10 cents to that, just in case the
Sure.
48 is the typo and not the 58? So make it 22 to
Because I did double check,
1,
those are the numbers that are on there, but then there's another one that says 45.
Just so we don't get in
yeah.
trouble over a dime.
Okay.
I like that.
Yeah, right, rounding it.
Add 10 cents to the total.
$22,201.03.
Instead of 48.
That's what's apples to apples between two.
22,000.
$201.03.
Further discussion and
Can you
questions?
just read that motion back, pretty please?
So I had it separated out. Motion by Mrs. Moore to accept the bid from Brock's for up to $11,985.48 for FHS flooring work and up to $10,215.45 for flooring work at
Valley View Community School.
So let's make the first one 58 cents instead of 48, and it'll make it the addition work.
Any further questions? When's that work gonna get done? Vacations?
Vacations.
All those in,
Oh, just quick question, where's this money from?
This was part of a budget last year.
That's what I thought, I just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. New business revenues?
So the first, I'm happy to announce that we are the recipients of the David M. David M. Brooks Music Grant. It is under $5,000, so I am letting you know, and I will have that documentation in your next packet with the full amount, but we've been given $4,300, so I will put the amount in our next agenda, and now that I have that confirmed, and we will have a vote to accept that for the next one.
Who applied for the grant?
Actually, last round, we had applied for it, and this time around, I got a letter saying, you are the recipient, and I called them and I said, are you sure? Because I didn't fill anything out on this. And they said, nope, you're on our list, demographically, you fit, and we're sending this to you. And I said, thank you very much.
Is that the check? Cash it.
Yes.
Quick.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right.
And then the other piece to let you know about, the New Hampshire School Safe Grant, we had a public hearing to accept the initial amounts. They have given us an additional $2,500 increase that I don't have the sheet on yet, but they've given it to us verbally. So that's under the $5,000 increase, so I can, again, accept and let you know, but we will be receiving that, and as soon as I have that in writing, I will bring that to you. We've also been told that this is a 3-year grant, so it will be at least $20,000 for each of the 3 years, this year, next year, and the year following. So it is not unanticipated. We know it's coming, and that's a good thing. So.
Okay. Graduation date.
Do we need a motion, or you've already accepted?
Not at this, they're under the amounts, but I'm going to have the finals so that we can do a final motion next time. Graduation date, the state has shifted the requirements as far as setting a graduation date. We can do that now, should the board choose to do so. We still have several potential opportunities for snow. I would love to declare ice out and spring is sprung, but I don't think I can go there yet. We can set a date and not have to shift it if we do have additional snow days. Looking to see what the board's preference would be on that, or if you wanted to wait until early February. Right now, June 13th is looking like where it would fall if we have no other days. We do have 4 days out. June 20th would be a possibility if things shift a lot, but again, we can set it and say this is where it's going to stay. Right now, Kingswood is also set for the 13th. I have had several phone calls saying, please don't have it at the same time as Kingswood. But traditionally, our graduation has been on that Saturday at 10 o'clock. And I don't necessarily see moving our traditions to accommodate another district. But wanted to put that out and see if you would like to set it now. I did have someone contact me this weekend saying she's trying to set a wedding date. So I know that the sooner we can let families know, the better. No pressure, yeah. The sooner we can let families know, particularly those who have families coming in from out of town, it does facilitate setting those travel arrangements.
So let me see if I heard you correctly. Right now it would be June 13th with no cushion days.
One cushion day.
One cushion day. So if we had 2 more snow days, it has to go to June 20? It sounded like you were saying the state wouldn't make us go to June 20.
The state wouldn't make us move it. And so we could say now that it's June 30th. We have enough instructional hours. 13th, excuse me. We could set it for the 13th. We have enough instructional hours. We wouldn't have to move it. We could say it's a done deal and have done if you want to set that date now. If you want to wait, that is certainly your prerogative as a board.
We've typically set it almost April.
It's been March, April when it's been set before.
Really late.
It is, but I'm okay with waiting until just before February break.
You'll have, 2 more board meetings. If we looked at the board meeting just before February break to see if February has done what February sometimes does. Typically, what it would mean is if we set it for the 13th, we would have enough hours, more than likely, to just say, okay, seniors are done, the other students would be going longer.
What would that do for finals? And
senior finals are typically not at the same time as underclassmen finals anyway. So.
Right, but would they get all of the curriculum and instruction in to go with the finals?
Well, and again, if it's, as we're moving to more competency-based, it's not just about the seat time, although while it does shift, it is about the curriculum and trying to make sure that they get in and can compact what they would need to do.
The boards. I personally don't mind waiting another.
The majority of schools have it already set.
What's that?
Many of the schools are already set.
Well, how do they do that with this weather thing? I don't get that.
Well, and that's partly with the state allowing them to just say, this is when seniors are done. But again, it's not something that we have to do because others have done. We have the latitude to wait should you choose to do so. I'm bringing it to you because I've had a number of requests, and I said what I've told them is that it will be discussed at the board level, but it doesn't mean that a decision will be made Monday night.
I'm fine to wait.
Linda, what do you think?
I'd almost propose setting it as June 13th tentatively, provided we don't have any more snow days. If we do, I mean, then
I
we'll
would
have
say
to revisit.
statistically, we're going to have at least a couple more.
Yeah.
But I'd be fine if we don't.
We can wait.
Butch, what do you think?
I'd set it.
Set it? Stan?
I'd kind of set it too. I think it's typically at that same 13 time frame, so, second Saturday or so. We might as well do it and play.
It's tough, it's tough to get seniors back after Memorial Day, but.
Does it, yeah.
Someone will make a motion?
Make a motion to set graduation June 13th, 10
Motion
a.m.
by Mr. Lewis.
A second.
June 13th, Saturday, 10 a.m. Mr. Frieder is the second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I was listening to Mrs.
Yeah.
McBride saying that they've already checked out.
Oh, yeah.
You don't
So
gain-
5-0?
Yeah.
You don't gain
Okay.
any. It learning impact by.
All right, thank you. We will
can
put that on the
reschedule the
district
wedding.
website.
Right.
Who's getting married?
Donation to Henry Wilson to accept for Harlem Wizards.
Yes, we have one confirmed at this point. Pip Rental has generously donated $250.
Who has?
Pip Rental, for the Harlem Wizards Family Engagement Night that's happening, and we have at least 3 other donations that I know are in the pipeline. So it looks like there's a very good chance that all of the startup costs will be covered through donations, which means then that any of the gate take would be for Henry Wilson STEM program. So that's very exciting. So thank you so much to Pip Rental and those others who are considering throwing in behind this effort. And if anyone else wants to do likewise,
I thought
contact me.
Harlem Wizards was a percentage of the gate.
They
goals.
do. We have a cost up front, and then there's a percentage of the gate that's shared.
Okay.
And so that upfront cost has to be made. If it's not
And
made,
what is
then
that
we don't get.
cost?
It's $1,000 up front.
Up front?
Yep.
And it's covered by?
It
the
looks like
donations.
it will probably be.
Okay,
So,
all right.
not trying to count too many chickens before they're hatched, but we know that we have the $250 from Pip Rental, and we are very, very appreciative.
I just thought it was a little odd to book a date. It's booked.
It is booked.
And then asking for donations. I
Well,
mean,
and partly, yeah.
it's just
short
odd to me.
timeframe on
Because
trying
if
to
you
get
don't get
things
any,
going.
what happens? Then they get the whole gate?
Yes,
Or-
they do.
Yeah.
So, and at this point, it doesn't look like that's going to happen, so. Yep.
Do you need us to?
It's under $500, so I can accept it on behalf of the district, but I'm letting you know about it.
Okay.
So,
Before we move into job descriptions, I had a question about the Josh Dream that's coming.
he's actually here tonight.
He's here tonight.
Yes.
Was that a grant?
Yes.
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 Okay. That was
It's
my,
family engagement under Title I.
thank you.
Okay. Job descriptions, we have 3 to look at. Reading, there's more?
No, go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
go ahead. Reading
Okay.
specialist.
Reading specialist, school psychologist, and speech pathologist. These are needing to be updated before we have contracts that are going out. I'm asking for a first read on these. These are ones that we haven't had in specificity and want to make sure that we get some things in place. So these have been vetted by admin. They're coming to you.
A motion to accept as a first read.
Motion by Mrs. Moore to accept all 3. The first read. As a second.
I'll second.
Second by Ms. McElhenney.
I have some feedback on it.
Okay.
It seems very specific. Must be able to sit, must be able to kneel.
Those are requirements from the Department of Labor that we have to specify the amount of physical demand on a particular position, and that is fairly boilerplate now.
Okay.
I know, it seems a little bit nitpicky.
Regularly required to see, talk, and hear.
Yes, and again, that is.
in a lot of job descriptions
Yep.
now.
Which means then if I need this person to be able to see, then it might preclude hiring somebody who has a visual disability.
Okay.
So these
In here.
Yes, they are, yeah.
So we currently, Mr. Lewis, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, you said these were needed to be updated. What's changed?
We don't have the specifics.
Oh, you
They
don't have-
have-
okay.
So we need these
All right.
as part of our cadre of.
We have currently people in these positions.
We do.
And we don't have a job description for a reading
As
specialist.
I went back through, I could not find one in the
That's
drive.
hard to believe.
Yep.
I think we do. We should have them somewhere. Certainly, speech and language
Right, and
pathologist.
I could not find specifics in the drive. So that's why I'm bringing to you to make sure that we have updated. And I know that anything that's in there is far enough back that it's not going to have the updated required language from the Department of Labor.
Have we, yeah, I get that, but have we asked these folks if they could produce a job description? I mean,
They did not have.
holy moly. Any further discussion? All in favor of first read?
Thank you.
Okay, old business, bus removal?
Yes, we still have 2 buses sitting in the back parking lot that have not been removed. I did receive an email from Mr. Henry this afternoon saying that he had been told that his removal company would be picking those up either today or tomorrow. It obviously did not happen today.
Okay.
I need to find out from the board at what point, or if there is a deadline that you would like to give on the removal of those buses. There was one involved initially. At what point do we need to say we are going to have them delivered to you and here's the bill? Or are we looking to just see them gone eventually?
I'd say 10 business days.
From when? Today?
From tomorrow.
Any other thoughts?
The initial bid included a 10-day removal from the day we received payment, which was
Right.
October 31st.
Right.
So I guess the question is at what timeline are you going to ask? And then what are the ramifications if that's not met? Because I know that you've emailed back and forth, but we don't have any.
So 10 days and we refund the money? I don't know what the protocol would be.
I have not the buses.
I'd say 10 days and then we
Well, then
transport
we had a
and
second, we
give
had
a
a
bill.
second option, didn't we? Wasn't there a towing company that was interested in it as well?
There actually, we could see if we can get them all the way for scrap. There was an amount that we could have got for scrap that was entertained at the same time. Then the issue will be, do we refund the money that's been paid, or do we say that, the bid wasn't complied with and it's our discretion to remove?
Do we know why they haven't been removed yet?
I think there have been a number of issues with trying to get them running. I know that it doesn't sound like the ones he has checked in with to have them towed have been quite as responsive as he had hoped. And I know that they did have a death in the family in between that certainly took a chunk of time out. And, I'm perfectly willing to work with somebody around something like that. But it's becoming an issue now. We're having to plow around them. We're plowing them in, which is going to make it that much more difficult for them to remove the buses and to get to them, to get them hooked up and taken away. So, looking to see what you would like us to do with that.
Yeah, definitely go with that 10-day window, and then we have them towed, and then the bill would have to be reimbursed.
Well, if we're getting it for scrap.
Towed to a destination of his choosing. I'm wondering if there's an issue on the end of him not being able to get them towed. If we can manage that, he'd have to reimburse us for the
Why
towing.
don't we give Ms. Vaughn the ability to negotiate with Mr.
Okay.
Henry and then come up with a plan.
Okay.
That
Bring
gets
that
this
to you.
done within 10 days.
Okay.
Because it sounds like he communicated, he's going to,
Yeah.
today or tomorrow.
He's been very good about communicating.
Hopefully the
with
best
me.
thing
Yeah.
is
So-
somebody's there tomorrow to get him out of here.
Okay.
If that works for everybody else, I think that that's a good solution. Give him the 10 days and you negotiate however it works for.
I like that.
But maybe, I think maybe, I mean, well, just this public minutes, and he could watch this meeting, so maybe just stress that after the 10 days, we are actually looking at having them removed by the other option.
Okay.
You know?
Removed, and then our using them as scrap, and then what becomes of his bid? Is
Well,
it-
then that's for him to take that business up with the board,
Okay, all right.
in my opinion.
Yeah, okay.
Than getting into it now.
So if that eventuality happens, that would be for him to take up.
Okay, all right. So is there a motion then on what you, or is that just a, please go do it?
Please go do it.
Okay.
Make it
I can
number
do
one.
Sounds like we're all in agreement.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I'm actually going to motion to table the MOU if that's okay.
Yeah.
We hadn't had a chance to look through.
We did get an MOU sent to Ruth Ellen from Mr. Capello.
Yes.
That their attorney has looked at and looked at sort of combining
Ours
points
and theirs.
from both parties. It was my fault. I thought that you sent it to all of us. And I didn't realize that it just came to me. So the rest of the board didn't have a chance to look at it yet. So that's what
This was recent that
As
that
you-
occurred?
last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So as you look at the documents, the one with the blue lines in it is the combined piece that includes their attorney's changes to meld them a little bit close. The one with the predominantly red, and it's also included in the one that's attached to the stool kidder piece, is where our attorneys have then gone and kind of taken that piece and said, well, here's what else we still think you might need to look at. So you have both pieces.
All right.
And so the motion to table till the next meeting
Yes.
by Mrs. Moore. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Frieder. All those in favor? Aye. CIP?
Okay.
Oh, actually, just one more question on that, though. We had been waiting to hear also from the board as to whether or not we could all just kind of sit down and discuss the MOU. Have we heard back anything about a joint meeting?
I did watch part of the last selectmen's meeting, and there was a comment by Chairman Prue that maybe we should meet. I suggested that in both emails that I sent to her. And there was nothing in the email, I believe, that you received.
It
was
did
there?
say if there's anything else that you feel still needs to be done, that they invited the board to meet with the selectmen in chambers. So it didn't sound like it was necessarily a joint meeting, it was, you could come to that. So I
just really
will
feel a
forward
meeting
that
would be-
email to the board.
Would be great, rather than bouncing it back between attorneys. I think sitting down would really,
Yeah, I think that was our
Beneficial.
original idea when we invited them to sit down before it got
This
back
far.
and forth to the attorneys.
yeah.
It's a little disappointing, but I think that we should sit down with them.
Are there serious differences between the two that we just?
Maybe once
I'll
we
let you
look
read
them.
through it, and I think that part will probably be clear, and then, because I don't want to launch into a discussion before people have had a chance to digest what's there.
Okay.
CIP.
Okay. You have an updated draft of the CIP in your folder. That should give you, it's in color. Yeah, there it is. It looks like that, yes. Thank you. This is now in line with the current updated warrant articles. I do need to take this to the CIP committee as soon as possible. It is the last addendum that goes in their book. So, but I wanted to bring it to you for approvals so that they can get it together. The principal changes that you see there are aligning it with the warrants and also including the other pieces of the roof sections that still need to be done so that those are clearly part of that, as that is not the most likely portion of the performance contract. It doesn't mean that it couldn't be wrapped into, but looking at the sections of that performance contract, should it pass, that would have the largest energy savings impact, is probably not the roof. It's probably other pieces of the envelope, the windows, the lighting, the heating systems. Although if what we get back in our overall audits state otherwise, then certainly that's shiftable. This is a plan. It's not a chiseled in stone.
So you need a motion from the board
to take it from draft to...
How many roof sections on Henry Wilson? I see up to N.
It goes through N. Yep. Yep, it's kind of the house that Jack built.
Correspond with all the additions, or?
More or less, yes. It's chunks and where the roof heights change and pieces that have been added on, and yeah.
I'll move that we accept the plan.
I will second.
Motion by Mr. Frieda, second by Ms. McElhenney. Discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Thank you. I do have a couple of other pieces of old business. That
We
are
got
not
two more on the agenda, though. We have two more on the agenda.
on the agenda. You have
Clarification of insurance buyback?
Yes. Yep. So on that, there was when we did a vote back in November on insurance buybacks for the support staff, and then to clarify where it aligned with the CBAs for the other groups. Administrators were not specified in that motion. I want to clarify that that's not the case, that that's individually negotiated, or were they to be included in that year-round figure that was put forward. Either way is fine, I just want to clarify it as we're looking at going into contracts. Currently, we have no one that's affected by that, but I need to be able to give information about what that could look like should that change.
I don't even remember that.
I know, I'm trying to remember. Can we put this on the next agenda and bring back those minutes?
Yes, we can.
I'd like to review those minutes.
Okay. Yep, because it's not specified in the motion.
Yeah, I make
so-
a
and that's
motion to
fine.
table this for the next agenda.
Okay.
I have a second by Mrs. Moore, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Voter newsletter?
The voter newsletter, what I wanted to, and it's in your packet, I didn't print it because it's very long, but I do have an email from Barbara Lohman stating that what we had proposed for our newsletter was perfectly acceptable. And she also included a lengthy document on electioneering and First Amendment issues that is in your packet. It's about 30 pages, so I didn't print the whole thing, but I do have a print copy. It's on the drive. But just wanted to let you know that she read through it. She said everything that you have in there is factual. It's not an issue should you choose to send that. And again, because that information will shift once we get through deliberative session, or could potentially shift. We haven't done another draft of that, but would certainly like to do that once we get to the other side of things. So putting that forward as a, just informational that we received that it was
What was the
fine.
plan, to look at it again after deliberative anyway, so
Yes.
next week?
Either next week or the following, we would be looking to mail it out prior to the March vote. And if we can get that rewritten for next week, it's a short turnaround week with deliberative on Saturday and then the meeting either Monday or Tuesday, depending upon where that falls.
All right. And what about in our packet, we also have the acceptance of money for the robotics program?
We did that already.
We did
You already
that,
did
that
that?
was the public hearing.
Oh, thank you, sorry. Oh, did we vote?
Not yet,
Oh.
not yet.
Okay,
That's number 12.
yeah, we can't. Okay.
Yes, that's number 12.
Oh, okay.
I also have under insurance, I'll pass that to you. When we had brought to you the possibility of exploring another insurance plan, that was as a possibility, and it has come up really too short a time turnaround to try to get that solidified. But this is what we are looking at, our effective rates, and this is what we have budgeted on for the Farmington School District for next year. But just letting you know where that stands. This has not been sent in yet. It needs to go in for February 1st, but I wasn't going to mail in anything that you hadn't seen and approved.
So if I'm to understand correctly, there was a secondary option, which no
There was
longer
a
is on the
second,
table.
yes,
This
because
is the
we
only option.
couldn't get everything in place fast enough to be able to make that work well for this year.
Okay.
So it's yellow open access with choice fund, that's it.
Yes. Well, it also includes the orange, so it does give possibility of that high deductible plan. But we had looked at the possibility of moving from school care to another option. That's not on the table at this point. So, if I could have
Do you want to?
a motion to go ahead and send this forth, that would be great.
Motion?
I'll make the motion to go ahead with school care health benefit plan for the upcoming fiscal year.
A motion by Mrs. McElhenney, a second by Mr. Frieda. Discussion.
Do we want to note the increases in the, it was 7.5% for the yellow open access?
Yes.
And 6.4.
Okay, the guaranteed billing rates, the most we're going to be seeing is 7.5. The effective with the potential of that piece that we might get back could drop it down, but that's not a guarantee. We're not going to be paying more than a 7.5% increase, which is what we have budgeted.
Yep.
So the rest of that motion is including the 7.5 increase for?
Or up to a 7.5%
An
increase.
increase for guaranteed monthly billing rates.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Thank you. That was Mr.
Me.
Frieda?
Was there something else?
Performance contract and tax impact for your approval. You have this in your packets. This is information on the, thank you. This is information on the performance contract. Looking to utilize this for the deliberative session, but wanted to make sure that you had preview access to this first. And if there is anything that you feel definitely needs to be shifted for clarity's sake, certainly willing to do so. This is from Siemens' general presentations to us, but we do have the ability to make changes if there needs to be clarification. And then to go along with that is a second set of slides for the operating budget process and tax impact statements for the district.
So it's going to be a PowerPoint presentation during deliberative?
This would be presented during deliberative and should probably be posted tonight.
On the website?
Before on the website so that people have access to it prior to.
Will both the performance contract piece and?
Yes.
Okay, so they'll both be on the website?
I think it looks great.
I don't think you necessarily have to vote on it, we were on your presentation before.
Nope,
so-
but wanting to make sure that that was met with your approval and if there's anything else that you wanted for clarification going into Saturday. Hearing none?
No, all set.
Okay. All right.
Okay, is that,
Yes.
I just had a quick question. Any bites on recording secretary? Anything?
None.
Where did we advertise again?
We've advertised on EdJobs, the website. I believe we had put it
Anybody
on
in the
Indeed
audience
as well.
want a recording secretary?
I'm a lot of fun.
We do such fun all the time.
I am very, very happy to announce, though, that I do have a long-term sub for the science position, who will be starting on the 3rd of February. A certified long-term sub. So I am
Certified in science.
certified K-8, but Ken at least is a certified teacher, which is more than I had last week. So,
Okay.
okay.
We need to vote.
On the public hearing?
Well, let's vote on that, and we'll do public. Vote on accepting the, let's go back over, Robotics Education Development Program grant in the amount of $12,500.
So moved.
So moved by Mrs. Moran.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lewis. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay.
I thought I'd get a little dance or something over there. The collective side works too.
Who was the motion? I'm sorry. I missed
The motion was Mrs. Moran, second by Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
All right, public participation. Mr. Brown.
I'm hoping that tomorrow I don't have to make a phone call to Attorney Fenton up at DOE and the county attorney. Mr. Shagnon, you weren't in the room earlier. I find it amazing that we can set deadlines for 10 days to have buses off the property, yet within 2 weeks we can't send a letter home curing our Class B felony and telling parents their children are being recorded and complying with the law. So is the silence that the letters not go home, is there any intent to fix this? Because it's either going to be fixed internally or externally.
Was this brought up earlier?
There was no discussion.
Has anything been sent home?
The discussion has been had at the admin, and I will make sure that those letters go home tomorrow. I will send them myself.
I can't hear you.
She said the letters will be going home tomorrow.
Thank you. My second question is, if I understand it correctly, the basketball game is being run by the middle school? The charity game?
Yes.
Okay, which is, I like the concept. I give them a lot of support, but at some point there would be a contract signed, correct?
Yes.
Okay, what's the process in signing a contract for the district? Does that need board approval, or is that something that's,
Up to a certain amount can be done through my office.
Okay. That's the policy, correct? Okay, and my last comment is, and I'm going to botch your name, but I'm going to use your title. Going back to the Director of Curriculum's comments, I went into the website when you were talking about the contract and the, I think they call it professional development time. And I looked under professional development on the website. There's nothing there. I saw her original presentation on her vision for the community, and it's phenomenal. It's a breath of life, and it's what the community is looking for. So as you're talking about this program and the district's vision, instead of snapshotting different pieces where people that aren't always here aren't going to understand that putting the pieces of the puzzle together, it would be nice to say, here's our vision. I saw the bid out for the director, whatever. We're out to bid on somebody that's going to facilitate the meeting. This is what we're looking to accomplish. This is how the professional development team ties in. Because if you look at the comments at the Budget Committee hearing, what you were hearing is, or what you weren't hearing is, I don't want to invest in education. What you were hearing, if you were listening, is, I want a district to get better. And that's the pulse of the community. So if you create the transparency and the communication with the community, it's going to work. But right now, you're at a point where, and I said it at the emergency meeting, there's a lot of trust being lost, and there's a lot of pushing towards rebellion out in the community. And I don't think that's where our district needs to go. I think the community needs to pull together, and part of that is directing people to where the information is, and when you tell them where the information is, kind of make sure it's there. It's like we don't even have a line item budget. We have a deliberative session on Saturday that we can go line by line by line and look at what we're spending for $16 million. And there's going to be a lot of people walking in there that's going to upset, because they're going to tend to cut because they're not seeing it in black and white. They're not seeing what you're presenting to them. So sometime within the next week, I'd like to see a budget up there before deliberative.
It's on the website.
Your line by line isn't. Not available to us.
Okay.
And when I went into, and I think what happens is sometimes you guys as board members have a different privilege than the public, and you guys can see stuff that we're not seeing. Because if I go into a lot of the Google Docs trying to compare last year's budgets, I'm locked out. It asks for username and password. So I can't go back to documents and do comparisons.
At any time, if you find that, please contact me so that I can correct that.
Or any one of us sitting here, more than willing to get you the documents that you want.
Absolutely.
But I think going back to the PD and how it times into it, you're asking for $16 million. People are asking for improvement. And I think part of that deliberative process should be, I think the original presentation was done here on what your new curriculum director's vision is, because that's got a lot of impact. That's power. And that's not what the community's asking for. That's what they're begging for.
Anyone else?
I just had a clarifying question. Thank you so much for letting me speak earlier, and it seemed like it was the decision of the board that discussion of Haven's programs in the schools was a more appropriate item for the agenda. So could I get a little clarification on what the process and timeline might be for having us at it?
I think at this point, it's been brought to the board, and they've said they would like it placed on the agenda.
So we need to decide our February
Well,
meeting.
is Mr. Castonguay presenting his report at the next meeting?
My understanding is that, yes, I know he's not available on the 3rd. He should be available on the 4th.
Right, we're talking about moving the thing to the 4th, okay. Are you available on February 4th, which would be next Tuesday?
I can check my calendar
Okay.
right now.
Why do we have to move it?
I can't be here Monday. You can certainly still have the meeting, I just cannot be here, and so Penny suggested, can we move it?
I have jury duty on the
Totally.
3rd anyway, so I won't be here.
At night?
On the 3rd?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how long it's
This was a big case. They're locking you into a
So you'll know
hotel.
Tuesday if you've been selected, so Tuesday's probably
Tuesday won't be good for me.
I am not available on the 4th. But if that's the only time that you can have Haven on the agenda, we can try that.
Oh, it's not the only time. I was just trying to coordinate your schedule with Mr. Castonguay, because it sounds like the board said earlier they wanted him here.
I could certainly move his report to the 17th so that those could coincide.
Okay.
What's the 17th look like?
Holiday.
It's the next board meeting.
It is?
Yeah.
I bet that's President's Day
It's
for
President's
most
Day,
people.
but we don't.
But we're
right,
here.
But we're
Yeah, I'm
here
just saying.
because we
She
take it
might
off
be off.
during vacation.
During vacation week.
You might actually have that off, and if so, we don't want to commandeer your time.
17th.
That would work, yes.
Okay, so we'll get that on the agenda for 17th.
Thank you so much.
How does the board feel? I cannot be here Monday. You said you couldn't either?
I don't know.
Oh. Does the board?
Stan said Tuesday he couldn't be
Tuesday
here.
is
You cannot?
very good, no.
I mean, I can be here later in the night. So,
It seems
it's up to the board.
Mr. Lewis?
Should be okay.
All right, we'll stick with Monday.
God willing, and the creek don't rise.
So Tuesday, Monday or Tuesday? Which is
Either.
your-
Well,
Well, okay.
We're gonna stick with
So
Monday.
do you have a quorum for Monday then?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, our next meeting will be Monday, February 3rd, our regular board meeting here at 6:30. Deliberative session begins Saturday morning at 9 a.m. right here at Farmington High School Gymnasium. Anybody
There
want to
is
say anything?
babysitting available for deliberative session through the Honor Society, so
Yes.
that, so if you need.
And food.
And food.
Yes.
Food is always, and the food is provided by the Honor Society as well? I don't know.
I don't know.
I thought Robotics
Okay.
did food last
Robotics,
year.
we're working on
Okay.
trying to get some parents involved.
Okay. There will be
Busy
food
building
that
a
will
robot.
benefit students. Done. Yes.
All right, we hope to see folks on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. Thank you to those of you who joined us from your home tonight and those of you that are here in attendance. I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public session 1 under RSA 91A:3, A, B, and C for nominations and resignations.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Lewis, second by Mrs. Moran. All those in favor by roll? Aye. Good night.
Thank you.